Hello, class. Sarah usually is here with us, so just let me know when you're in the chat. Check a couple things here. I hope everyone's been having a good weekend. And happy Valentine's Day. Totally slipped my mind for a second. All right, so let's kind of get into it here. The first thing I'm going to start off is we're going to go over some of the online participation questions that you guys turned in on the 8th, so last week, that I didn't get to because I'm not quite sure if it's someone's specific file or if it's just my computer, but it just took a while to download, so we're going to go over those first. And then today we are also going to talk about the principles of motion design again, but we're going to be discussing it within Cinema 4D this time. I do have some stuff set up here for you guys, so we'll go through that in a little bit, but it is live there for you guys to start looking at and working on. And I just want to remind you guys of a couple things before we get started here regarding. One is with the Duo authentication app that Maricopa County is starting to use to sign into like your Canvas or, anything related to school, your SIS, that kind of stuff. You will be notified via it's just basically essentially like a two-factor authorization. Um, and it's almost like signing in, when you sign in anywhere, it texts you. It's like, are you signing in here? You say yes, approve, whatever. And so you'll just approve that. It's just, like I said last time, another layer of security for you guys to have when just logging in, and makes it harder for um, information to be, someone to hack into stuff. I don't know. People are crazy. I don't understand people's motivation for things. I mean, I get it, but I don't get it, right? Um and then the other thing was to again mention to you guys the Artists of Promise that'll be coming up here. The submission date will be coming up here, I believe, after sometime after when is it? Spring break. And so if you guys go through and start doing your making the changes and you know the feedback that I give you with your projects, if you go through and start making those updates, then you can submit stuff into there for hey Sarah, um for the Artist of Promise, which is really cool. It's a great accomplishment. All right, looks like I gotta shut her off today. Let me see. Siri always listens to me. And I believe I have her in like an Irish accent, which makes it more fun, but it also doesn't when she doesn't shut up. Let me just put this into like cinema mode. That one won't bother me. Okay. There's one more thing I wanted to mention to you guys. Um, It'll come to me in a minute, but yeah, let's go ahead and get started on this. Oh, the other thing I did want to mention. If you guys are, when we're going to be coming up here where I'm going to put in your first like revision round project, right? The feedback that I'm giving you currently on your projects doesn't have to be done in time. I have a couple students that are doing them right away, which I love it. It makes less work for them in the long run, right? They just go in there and they make the updates and they don't have any issues. Um, but with this revision round coming up, it will be um if you don't have it in the day that it is due, I want it in by the next day, and I want to see all the revision rounds. I will grade that one a little bit harder than I grade the rest of them. Right now I'm giving you guys, I'm being more lenient on the grading because really what I'm asking you to do is just kind of follow the directions and complete the assignment. But for the revision rounds, I want to make sure that every project is in there. If you don't get a project in there, then you'll get points marked off. If there aren't changes from the original project in this other project, you'll get points marked off, right? So, I need to be a little bit more firm on that because I want you guys to start understanding how feedback and deadlines really work. I've been more lenient and stuff, but I really want those who are maybe a little behind to start catching up because after spring break, if you don't have all of these projects done, and maybe one, if you don't have one of them done, not as big of a deal. But like if you have more than one project not completed by spring break, which is literally in like a month, right? Then you guys are gonna have issues, right? It's not that I want to have you guys, having like struggling in the class, right? I understand that you guys are seeing right now, they're really intense programs. There's a lot to learn. I just don't want you guys falling behind. And I would rather to see a withdrawal grade and have you guys taking the class like another semester because I teach it all year round versus like failing in class, right? Because that hurts your GPA. It affects, I believe, um, I actually don't know if it 100% affects like your tuition assistance or anything like that. So I just want you guys to start, keeping that in mind. So moving forward, Sarah, my mod, I want you to let me know. You're my mod squad, by the way. It's always us, and I love it. I want you to let me know if it becomes too loud in the live chat. As far as like replaying these videos back. So I'm going to actually bring these inside of After Effects because I see some MOV files and Windows does not play them and it is dumb. I think that it is pointless that it doesn't do that. So first of all, let me change this numbering system here before that drives me nuts later. Notice, I know I talked to you guys about Mod Squad. Yeah. I know I talked to you guys about file structure and stuff, and I mention it every so often. I'm going to mention it again. Notice how, I have my main folder, my GCC one up in the corner here. In fact, hold on, let me move myself. Oop, wrong. Let me select my camera. Scoot me down here. Should work fine. But up in the corner here, I have my main folder, which I keep just on my desktop, or you guys can keep on like your drive, right? And then when I click into it, I have my Art 184. And then in there, I have all of my projects labeled out by, numerically titled so I can see like which projects are in order. And that's just how I do my stuff. It helps to keep you guys, it helps later on because what's going to happen is at some point in your career, whether it is like, 6 months down the road or 2 or 3 semesters down the road, or when you're going to like apply to a different school and you're getting your portfolio ready, you're going to want to access these files because some of them you might want to, oh, that's okay, Sarah. But anyways, I'm so sorry. I get distracted by the chat sometimes. But you guys are gonna want to like edit these later at some point or just access them. And so the easier it is to access for yourself, you're gonna understand that it just makes your life so much better, not having to dig through 15 different folders and you're like, where did I put this? Because it's happened to me. This technique has taken me a while to develop, and I have no idea why. But it works, right? It just go ahead, steal it from me. I don't care. I love seeing work like this. If I were to open another person's folder and see it organized, awesome. I would be like, oh, I love this person right away. They're my kind of, they're my cup of tea. So let's open After Effects, and I'm just going to dump these videos and preview them. Sarah, is you were saying, I'm sorry, you're saying in the chat that you forgot you had a no brain moment and a no brain moment and forgot to submit. Are you saying a project um or a participation grade? Because these are from, I want to let you know, I said in the beginning you might not have been here right away, but these are from last week. And I believe I have one in here for you. And if not, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Like I said, you guys, it's not a make or break deal if you don't get a participation grade, and like one or two is not going to destroy your grade, right? But you do want to stay on top of it. And that's, so it's not that big of a deal if you miss one. I'm not going to be like to the basement with you. But the next one is due tomorrow night for you guys on the chat. Let me see here. All right, so I got this open. Let me close that. Let me just take these. I'm gonna not take that one. Let's look at this one first of all. Manny. It says here, you recall hearing Blender being mentioned in the YouTube videos. You're familiar with Blender? And no, so we don't use Blender in here because Blender is an open source 3D modeling program. It's a great one. They've since it first came out, it's been immensely upgraded to the point where now you can create really awesome things in there. But no, what we're gonna use Cinema 4D throughout the entire class because that's industry standard. That's what you're gonna see like when you go to a studio. Um, that or Autodesk Maya. You're never really going to go into a studio and see Blender. You might. I have not yet, but um the point of it being, right, is if you can navigate through Blender or Cinema 4D, you'll probably also be able to navigate your way through Autodesk. It's just different user interface, right? So, but it's all the same concept. You just have to kind of navigate around. It's like going into a new room and just kind of familiarizing yourself with it. And so, no, we will not. I will say, Manny, um, no more text files, right? These are supposed to be video files. So I hate to be that guy. I don't like being that guy. But if I get another one, I'm not going to accept it. So I'm just going to remove that. I will give it to you right now. Like I said, I'm not, I'm pretty lenient with stuff, but I do want to see things handed in appropriately. So let me create a new folder. Leave it untitled. I don't care. I'm not keeping these in here. All right. Select them all. Move them in. Folders in a canvas. You tried through Google Drive and everything. All right. Here's a good question. Sarah's asking in the chat right now. She says she's having issues um, uploading folders into Canvas. Now, Sarah, are you zipping the folders? Or are you just trying to upload it as is? Let me go to here. If you zip it, you guys are too young. I was going to use a Field of Dreams reference. I don't want to be embarrassed. Yeah, just zip them up. So if that's the problem, if you guys are having the issue with for some reason it's not uploading it, you have to zip it. Um I don't it does it just cuz it can't handle certain file sizes, right? And some of these files end up being really large, especially if you put like footage into them and stuff. And so compressing it, right? Cuz that's also known as compression. Compressing your files by zipping them up, it will allow you to upload them that way. So, But good question. Some people don't know that, and so I appreciate the ask. Let us go. We'll go to the modules for later and to the questions. All right. So I have Asia. Let's play this.
Hello.
Let me see. Are you let me know if you're hearing this, Sarah, inside of let me know if you're hearing it over the live stream because I was having some audio issues earlier and I had to mess around with some settings. So please let me know if you can hear it.
For my question this week, I was wondering for portfolio work in the motion graphic industry, if it's more common for people to create their own objects for their portfolio work to display, or they use the objects given in Cinema 4D. Thank you. Hello. For my questions.
So, just in case you guys aren't hearing it, Asia asked a really good question about like portfolio work and having um your own using your own assets versus using the stock assets, right? Inside of like Cinema 4D. It depends, I guess, on what you're going for. If you're okay, awesome. Thank you so much. If you're trying to get a job, let me backtrack here. When you put a portfolio together after school, right? School is the time that you're building work up. And so the nice thing about it is that you get more freedom with your projects and to kind of create more things that you want to. I know right now we're not in that phase just quite yet, but it will build on that, right? When you make a portfolio, you put the work in the portfolio that you want to do, right? If you do not like doing 3D work, don't put 3D work in your portfolio. If you don't like doing 2D work, don't put 2D work in your portfolio. And so it kind of goes along the same lines as that, right? If you are going to try and find a job for modeling, like you want to create environments or design characters or things like that inside of Cinema 4D, then absolutely you cannot use like stock assets, right? Because you want to show that you have that capability and that you have that tool belt, right? To be able to like the tool set in order to create that stuff. But if you're going specifically for animation, I don't think that it's going to be that big of a deal. Because I don't know if I really don't think it would be that big of a deal. Now, when I say that you should do it yourself, right? For the instance of like you're going for modeling or um you want to like do 3D modeling or 3D environment design and stuff like that, then yeah, you can use some of the stuff to like fill in the area, right? But your main object, whatever your main object is, you want to be created by yourself. And that's my opinion. I have not seen 3D portfolios come by my desk with any stock assets in them. Usually when you go to work for a studio that does like 3D design, they're going to have people in-house that do that. So you don't really see stuff from their portfolios that's not like original, but for the time being, don't worry about it, right? Um you're just trying to put things together right now, right? We're learning the assembly part of it and not necessarily how to create each part that goes into that assembly. But if you do like the 3D, right? 3D is fun. It's complicated. Um, it can be a little bit more aggravating, right? Because you have a third dimension in there, especially when animating. But we offer a lot, like Casey Farina does a lot of 3D classes, and so I really recommend taking one with him. They're really fun stuff. I mean, in fact, some of the work that I did in that class, I still use in my portfolio because I like it so much. And so, you do some fun projects, but in those classes is when you really learn to model. You'll get a little bit of a sense in here, but we're focusing mostly on motion, right? And so, um I just highly suggest I can't suggest more to like become well-rounded in the first like couple semesters and just figuring out what you want to do. And then you hone into the specifics that you want, right? But that was a good question. All right, we have Brandon.
Hi, I'm still not able to work in Cinema 4D. Hopefully, I'll get that fixed tonight. Um, but I did watch through the videos and it seems pretty straightforward. I was just wondering if we're gonna be doing any work in like cloth, like simulations or like water or anything like that. Hi,
I hope, Brandon, please get that fixed as soon as you can. I know there's been like issues with your drive, like some kind of C drive issue. And if not, I just really recommend going to school and using the computers there and just like, pumping it out as much as you can because my personal experience is the Cinema 4D stuff, it takes the longest to render and stuff, and it takes the longest to work around. So you definitely want to try and get that going as soon as possible and just reach out if you're having issues, right? I'll help you for sure. Um, at least with my capabilities that I have, it might be something beyond, but we can try and talk and figure stuff out. And as far as like cloth simulations, and water simulations, we will not learn about that in this class. That's a little bit more of a complex topic, but you will learn that kind of stuff in some of the other 3D classes. So, this is just your first step to build to those classes. So, good ask. Let me see here. This is Brian. Oh, hold on, Brian. Let me see. I don't know why it's. I'm not quite sure. Let's see. Fit. There we go.
Hi, so my question for this week has to do with keyframes. I was having problems during the Real and Surreal project with keyframes just not working. So I got this to move in a straight line, so if I try it again here, it should work. Oop, no. Right? Yeah, so it's like sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, so I am doing something wrong.
As far as this, I don't know if there's a second part to your question, Brian, but yeah, there's a couple things here that I noticed that we could change in your workflow to like help optimize it, right? First, the first thing is that you're using right here, you're grabbing these little tiny little handles, these ones right here, and you're moving these out, right? These just expand the object. They are not keyframeable parameters, right? The only things that we can keyframe are we can only do position, right? Yeah, spelled that right. Scale and rotation. And right now, your which right now you're in rotation mode, and you could tell because you see this orbit, you see this like gyroscopic like orbital object, right? Um, and if you hit, remember ERT are the shortcuts for scale, rotation, and move. And so if you see the one with the arrows on it, like that's the move tool. And then if there's a little box at the end of the lines, the colored lines specifically, not this yellowed one, but like you can kind of see here, right? Here's like I don't know if this is your axis, like your anchor point to anything, but at the end of these, if you're in the move tool, you'll see kind of like a cone shape and it'll be three-dimensional, right? And then if you're in the scale property, you'll see a cube at the end of them, and they will be colored, right? They'll be like, you'll see obviously red for X, Y is green, and blue is Z space. So that's the reason that it is not keyframing, because what you're grabbing is just like scaling the object out, or it's just like transforming it. I know that is very confusing, but you'll want to go into your scaling tool, which is I believe T. Rotation E is move, R is rotation, T is transform. So, and transform is scaling. Same thing interchangeable words. Another thing that you're doing, I notice is that when you're selecting this here to keyframe when you're only moving one parameter, right? You only want to, if you're only changing the scale, or you're only changing the rotation and stuff, you don't want to hit that button here because that keyframes everything. So if you accidentally move something, you can make, like, add a keyframe and make a mistake, right? So you want to focus on these ones right here over in this box. These little red dots that are here, you'll want to click on those and keyframe those specifically, right? So the P is for position, R is for rotation, S is for scale. And so, and then you have your X, Y, and Z value, X, Y, Z value, X, Y, Z value. And so you're going to want to come over here and you're going to want to click until that turns red. And if you go over and it's yellow, it means that it hasn't been recorded yet. And actually today I will show you guys how to kind of remove keyframes if you accidentally make one. So, but that, yeah, that's a good question. Let's play the rest of it.
If I select the keyframe, it has the things starred, so it did create a keyframe there. And if I go to a new one,
Oh, there you go. So you got that.
why doesn't it work? And then if I go back to this, this keyframe's already here, but if I wanted it to like rotate over time, that doesn't work. It just resets.
It's because you have to remember. So in After Effects, right? This can be a little confusing, and I get it. Because sometimes I forget to do it too while I'm working in Cinema 4D. But remember that in Cinema 4D, you change the value, you record the keyframe. You change the value, you record the keyframe. Versus After Effects that you just move anywhere and you change the value and it records it all automatically for you. It does not do that inside of Cinema 4D. And I think it's kind of like a safeguard so that you don't accidentally start moving things and keyframing a bunch, right? It wants to be like, are you sure you want to make this change? Click here. And so try that again, right? So you'll go to your this is a bad one too. I'll talk more about that because we're going to be working inside of Cinema 4D today. But like when your position's there, you're going to make sure you go to the beginning. You want to manually click that position one. Like I said, just kind of stay away from this one right here, unless we're going to keyframe like multiple changes, like your value over time. Even you don't have to do them all. And then it just keeps your timeline a little bit more clean. But keyframe it, move your playhead, change your value, keyframe again.
So I'm not sure exactly how the keyframes work. Yeah, I know the basics of it, but if you could fill me in exactly how it.
Let me know if that works for you. If for some reason it's still not working, we'll try and figure it out, right? Because I don't know if Cinema 4D had a recent update or anything. Sometimes updates to programs can cause issues as well. So,
Hello. My
hello,
question
Zoe.
for this week is going to be about the Cinema 4D rendering process. So I just grabbed this template, but let's pretend that this is an actual animation. So I was having some difficulties rendering my animations for the real and surreal assignment, and it would just render one frame and not the rest, and I realized that I had to click all frames, so I understand that now.
Good job. Awesome.
But I do get confused when all the frames render, like what the next step is, and how I get those frames and put them all into After Effects successfully. I feel like it's hit or miss for me.
Yeah, no worries. So, you take all of those images, right? I will show you. I think I have a PNG sequence from one of the projects we did. I think the ball bounce. The assets, the After Effects. Cool. Yeah. Okay. So I go over here, right? And I have all these images that I've rendered out. And the next step, you're inside of After Effects, inside of your project panel over here, and you're going to right click and you're going to import or control I, the shortcut for that, and you hit file and you're going to move over to wherever your let me see, wherever your projects, your like your PNG sequences, right? Where was it? Under assets, 3D ball bounds. You select one. You don't have to select more than one, because what's going to happen is After Effects is going to notice that it's a sequence, that it's sequentially, everything in this folder is sequentially numbered, right? Because you have like 13, 14, 15, so on and so forth. It notices that. So you want to make sure that that is checked. And then you hit import, and it imports that as like an entire sequence and not just a bunch of different pictures that you have to line up together, right? These are automatically lined up for you, edge to edge. Everything's in sequential order. And so it does all that work for you. But that's how you'll always render things out. And that is how, after the render sequencing is just done in Cinema 4D, you can just close out the rendering, like the box, the pop-up box that happens. Close it out, save your file, and you're done. You don't have to do anything else beyond that. So let's see. Who is next? There was Zoe. Let us go to Lee.
Hi, Miss Makara. So, looking at these two curves for the for this Principles of Motion project, do these have to be exactly like that, or is it just like, or is this just like an example of what they should look like?
Yeah, yours won't be exactly you. I mean, the closer you get to that, the better, right? Like, but you don't have to have it perfectly exactly the same spacing and exactly the same shape of like the like spatial differences in between the curves and stuff. I just want to see like this is how yours should look, right? It should be like something that looks very similar to that, right? Your curves should look similar. Your the spacing should look similar. Like in general, this right here, right? This is the heavy and the light ball bounce. Here is the heavy ball because it's happening quicker. It's bouncing and settling quicker, right? And so it's not covering as much time. And then this ball right here, this line right here, is the light ball because it's just continuing its bounce through the entire timeline, right? So, and then also how you can tell is the height of each bounce, right? So, these are just kind of examples of like what you want to be striving to get it to look like, right? You're going to want your, on the squash and stretch, you're going to want your curves to look like this and have a flat section, and then to look like this and have a flat section to look like this, and so on and so forth. But it's not like you have to bring it in there and it has to be like perfectly done. I just want to see that when I play back your work, that you're essentially doing that. That is, that's the motion that we're seeing happening. Because we're going to want to see, by here we can see that it's a bounce, right? It's accelerating on the way down and decelerating on the way up, accelerating on the way down and decelerating on the way up. Remember, this looks opposite. It's like, remember when we spoke about the coordinates in the graph in the first class, second class maybe, and that it's flipped, right? It's mirrored. So what you see in your scene, what you see on your screen and stuff, or in the composition, is going to look opposite. The motion's going to look opposite to what you're seeing the curves do, right? But yeah, just get them as close to that as possible, and then you should be good. So we just give those to you guys so that the reason we have that example in there is because a lot of the times you'll be working with stuff and you're like, I don't know why it's not looking the same. I don't know why there's like this extra jump in it, or why there's like it's not, why it's going slow on the way down and fast on the way up, right? Because we want you to look at this and be like, oh, well, this is obviously not what my graph editor looks like right now. This isn't what my curves look like. So let me try and get them closer to this, and then you'll be good. So it's just an example for you guys. All right, and then we have Kaylee.
Hi. This week's question kind of revolves around one of the questions you answered last week. You mentioned how there's an internship program that you'd want us to all take when we're wrapping up our time at GCC. My question mainly is, would it affect me at all? Because currently I live in California. I originally started GCC last year and in Arizona, and then I recently moved to California, and I enjoy the school. That's why I'm still taking classes online and haven't really looked into any colleges out where I'm located at the moment.
Yeah, so
I wasn't
well,
sure
finish that.
if the internship program would affect me.
So no. So essentially, because I'm running the internship class right now as well. And what you do is you just set something up. Your internship can be either live, like in person, or it can be remote, right? Like I have a student currently working with an out of country design company. The whole point of it is that um you have to do the work to find a company who is willing to have you intern with them, preferably like a paid internship, right? I find it absolutely abhorrent that people don't pay their interns because it is work. So I really suggest finding internships that pay. You reach out to the company, you let them know, hey, I'm a student here at GCC. Um, I'm wanting to intern at a company. I need to get experience. I need to do this for a credit. And then we'll set up that company, right? We have like an approved list of companies that we already work with that allow you to come in and take the internship. But if you find another company that wants to work with you and is going to do, right, because I don't want you to be getting coffee and stuff. I want you to actually be working in the programs that you're going to work in. And so right now I have a lot of graphic design students in that program, and they, they reach out to those companies and they're doing, like, I have someone working on logo design. I have people creating pamphlets and stuff like that. And so it's mostly wanting to see you guys get that like real world experience and not just having to be someone's gopher. That's not the point of it. But no, it will not affect you in California because you can do those. It might be something that you have to consider tax wise, right? Like if you get paid in Arizona, but you're working in California, that's something you would want to work out with the company that you're working for, um, because they might have you fill out different documentation. But as far as with GCC, no. And I'm happy you like GCC. We definitely want to keep you here. So yeah, just let us know when you're ready to take that class. Right now, it's like the course number is, oh, let's see, it's Art 297 AC. And so I think you can look for that. And 280 is a little bit different, but 297 is the internship class. So good question there. Let's see who is next. All right, Lee. Other Lee.
Hi, so this week, I had a lot of fun of using the models. I didn't know that there was already pre-made models in
Yeah,
4D, so that'll be interesting to do,
yeah,
at least
that's
to
cool.
try out more. I want to try creating models myself later in this semester, hopefully sooner, just so I can figure out how to do my own stuff.
We'll do a little
Because I
modeling,
really
tiny
liked
bit, not anything
how
crazy.
I forgot his name, but the video we watched of the guy making music, music with the animation, I thought that was really cool with each beat. I think what I had trouble on this week was probably like getting the two, because I made it in two projects, which is probably my bad, but I wanted to figure out how to merge them together. That
So, you should have two separate it should be two separate files, right? You don't make, you want to make sure that your surreal and real scene are two separate project files, because having all of that in one file is going to make it really big and it's going to take forever to open and you're just going to have issues with it that way. So, um, what you do is you create the animation in Cinema 4D. You have two separate PNG sequences, right? You have one for your real scene and one for your surreal scene, and then you composite them inside of After Effects, like I was showing earlier. And so, yeah,
having
let me
them
see.
go on like the same time, because when I tried merging them, they would go on at the same time, and so it would just be a big old mess. I was trying to separate.
Also, you have to sequence your layers. Remember, so like, the first layer, it'll look like this, right? Your first layer of PNG sequence, it ends, and then the next one will be like this, right? Your sequence here, like sequencing layers. Like, let's say this layer ended here. Oh, come on now. Oh, that's just a wrong button. And this one ended here, right? You sequence those layers. So they're going to, right there, they're going to butt right up against each other, just like that in a straight line. And that's called sequencing. You'll also hear people say offset, right? Offset your layers, sequence your layers. Same thing. I believe that's what you're saying
Separate
now.
them, but I didn't know how. But yeah, I
Separating
think
the
I just need to figure it
projects.
out more. And
If your projects are combined together, your real and surreal files, you can take all of the, let's open Cinema 4D real quick. There's like a tiny little tab at the top that says, it's opening on my other screen, guys. Sorry. It says you can like essentially have multiple, kind of like in a web browser where you can have multiple pages open. You can also have multiple projects open. So what I would do is, if you want to separate the projects, have that project open, create a new project here, same settings and everything. Take all of the layers that you want for like let's say your surreal scene, you want to put that into a different project. Select all of those layers, Control X to cut them out, and then just go into the next one, project, and Control V. I believe it'll work. Let me know if that doesn't work for some reason, and we can try and figure it out. The other way you can do it is you can make a duplicate copy of that file, right? You can go to Save As, and then change the file name just slightly, and then just go through and delete the stuff you don't want in it. In each one, right? So if you have one that's real, oh, come on there. Right up here is what I'm talking about. Here's the project that's open. If you click this button here, it'll open a new project. So you can do that, or you can, like, if you have like a bunch of different layers here, right? You can, let's see if it works. Let's just try it right now. All right, we have two projects. Let's say this is your combined real and surreal scene. We're going to go hit Shift. Let's say we wanted to move these. Control X. Control V, oh, Control V, there you go. It does work that way. So, two different solutions there for you. The other thing I was saying is that you can go up here, hit File, Save Project As, change the naming convention, and just go into each project and delete the things you don't want in it, right? So, that's a more time-consuming process, I'm going to say. The second option is, but two different solutions. Let me see. It's in After Effects. All right. And so this is Nolan. What's up, Nolan?
So my question for this week
Turn that
is,
down.
are there certain materials that don't go to objects? Because I was trying to put the ice cube on the knife, but I wasn't able to. So I'm curious if some items can't have materials, or if I'm just doing it wrong. So my question.
It might just be because there's already like a material. There's already material on that object. There's like a metallic material, And so you have to either remove that material. I'm not sure. I don't think there shouldn't be like any kind of lock on it. You should be able to edit materials quite easily. The problem with like some glass and some materials just don't play well with certain things inside of Cinema 4D. Okay, yeah. I turned it down slightly, but let me know. I just don't want to blow your eardrums out, Sarah, so I apologize. But thank you. Thanks, Mod Squad. Solid. I'll kind of show you guys today how to like swap out textures and stuff and materials on objects. And like if you add a material on an object and in your viewport it's like just pitch black and it's not supposed to be that way, it's like not playing well. And right now just pick a different material because they're so in depth. Materials are really, really deep subject to get into, and you could have an entire class on materials and lighting. We don't have one in here. You'll learn a little bit more about materials in the other classes because we're not specifically focused just on modeling and stuff. This is about motion. But yeah, maybe it's just let me see if I can see here if I move the looks like you're trying to drop it. You're trying to drop this ice cube right there. Trying to get it over to the knife. There's like, okay, here's the thing, is you're putting it on the subdivision object right here. We'll talk about a subdivision object today. What you'll need to do is you'll need to unfurl, I don't know why it does that every time I hit escape, but you'll take this little thing right there and you're going to unfurl it and you'll find the actual object that this like metallic texture is on, and delete that texture and add that ice to it. And it should work that way for you. So I hope that helps. All right, Maisie, let's see here. Oh, that's an image. All right, Maisie, we'll have a question maybe to go with that later. Here is Amaya.
So for this week's progress, it has been okay. I am still not quite comfortable with these programs, but that's just me because I'm so used to doing everything like 2D. And I know it's part of animation to learn other animations, and I'm working on it. I'm trying.
Is that one really loud? That's really loud in my headphones. Hold on. Let me update some settings. I need to hear what you guys are hearing. Oh, that was my mic. I turned my mic down. I'm sorry. Let me do this again.
So for this week's progress, it has been okay. I am still not quite comfortable with these programs, but that's just me because I'm so used to doing everything like 2D. And I know it's part of
Levels look
animation to learn
normal in
other
there, so
animations,
let me
and
know
I'm working
if
on
it's
it.
too
I'm
loud.
trying, but I just get frustrated sometimes, and I want to be.
That's normal. Like getting frustrated with things not working out, right? Like that happens with me still. I'm like, why is this not working? And so I just like sometimes I'll have to Google things even. Like I'll go on YouTube and I'll look things up all the time. I can't tell you how many people usually, think of all the millions of people using After Effects or Cinema 4D, and there's bound to be someone who's having the same issue you end up having. So, just reaching out to other students and just, finding the resources to help, that's a great option. But yeah, there can be frustrating. I guarantee you that there is probably not a single person in this class who has gone through these projects, and it's a rarity, right? That percentile of students that do that are very small. But even, when I was in school, I was like, I don't know what is going on. and I'm up until 2 in the morning trying to get something to render out and it's not rendering out correctly. So you're not alone in that boat.
To be
I'm
able
gonna
to
keep
be
playing.
able to fix it on my own and learn on my own. So that's another thing, trying to do everything on my own and complete this stuff without like help, and that's why it comes in late sometimes or like the very last minute, because I'm trying to do it all single-handedly on my own. But things that went well is I guess I was able to animate just a couple things, but I wish I could have done more. It's so time consuming. I get frustrated and don't want to complete it, but I end up doing so. It's just not the way I would like to, but I'm working on it, so I guess.
You're doing awesome in class, Amaya. Like, your projects are great, and everyone's going to have a little something wrong with it. The whole thing about wanting to do it all on your own without asking for help, um, I struggle from that. I will say, I think a lot of people deal with that as well. And so I'm just letting you know that you're learning right now and it is fully okay to ask for help, right? You don't have to do it all on your own just because I'm not there in class with you. I'm on the other side of a screen, right? It maybe feels like I'm not around, but I am around and you can reach out to me whenever you want. And Belle is, I am so sorry, I just did that. Belle is a wonderful tutor and she has helped a few other students in this class. I know because I've pointed them to her and their work ends up being awesome, because sometimes it's just something that you're not seeing. Um, and that is a part of why this work is kind of like a group effort, right? When you create things, you have to have someone else's eyes on it because you're not going to catch everything that is possibly needs changing, right, about your work. That's why constructive criticism is so important in our field, right? Is because we need someone to be like, hey, the timing's not quite right on that, or something just feels a little off. Maybe it's just like the size of it compared to this, like right when with art critiques and stuff. Although I will say, like, art, some people are just like beyond crazy. Um, it's an important part of growth. And so going through these struggles now will help you later on when you tackle the same thing, right? You're going to remember, I forgot, like this caused me a problem last time. Like let's avoid this and just go right to the solution that I found prior, right? And it's just a growing process. You guys are little seedlings right now. You guys are like my little Cabbage Patch babies, and I'm growing you from the ground up, right? I just want to see you guys pop out of the soil right now and get ready to go on to the next class. So it's okay if things aren't perfect um the first time, because they're not going to be. I will guarantee that to you right now. I am one of those people that is extremely critical of my own work. It's not a healthy thing. uh I will say I have had people tell me it's not a healthy thing, and these people are licensed professionals that tell me it's not a healthy thing. So just take it easy on yourself if you need to. If you're like getting that frustrated with your work, just walk away from it. And I'm not going to be upset about deadlines as much. Like I said, I will let you know which deadlines I'm more strict on. So, yeah, don't worry about it and ask for help. We're here for you. For all of you. This is not just go for you and Maya. This goes for everyone, right? All right. So, hit that. Janelle.
Hello, my question for this week is in Cinema 4D for my surreal scene. I had this clock here, and then when I went to render it out, it was just doing this. It wasn't like loading in or anything. So I didn't know why or what it was doing wrong, and I couldn't figure it out. So I wound up just having to change it out and did something different. But yeah, I still cannot figure out why it is not loading in when I go to render it out. So yeah, thank you. Hello.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. So it might be that in your render settings, reflections aren't turned on. And so you want to make sure that when you go into up here, right, you got your render settings right here. Wrong one. There. Under, I think it's under, let's say you guys are in the viewport render for that one, right? We've got aspect ratio, all this stuff. If we go under save, nope, not save, under viewport render, this one right here, go to viewport render and hit on reflections. And you guys also make sure that when you do that, you put on shadows and transparency, and that should be it. You guys don't have to worry anything else. Don't worry about depth of field. That's like for like camera movements, so we're not doing that. You guys won't have anything like far enough away that it's going to really matter. But yeah, those three things: transparency, shadows, reflections. Turn them on. Let's see under reflections. Yeah, don't worry about that kind of stuff. That's very complex render settings if you drop that down. So don't mess with those. Just make sure the boxes are ticked on right. It's not in this because I'm not pulling this from, there's no like template we're working off of in this project. I just opened a random project. So, and then let me see here. Sometimes if you go to the project settings, Cineware info, it might also be something that is on it could be something that is on like the material setting. It might be because it's a glass material. If you messed with the materials at all, it might be something with that. I'm going to assume you didn't because that's further into the project, unless you were just playing around in there and just opening, I mean, which we all do, right? We open things up and look into them. So if you changed any of those settings, I would change it back to see if that works. But other than that, yeah, if you turn on the reflections and the render settings there, and for some reason it's still not working for you, just even though it might be like the ideal thing you want there, I'm not going to like dock you points because it's not something specific. Although that was good job on your surreal scenes. So far, you guys are doing really good on those. I'm going to grade those privately though, because we only have so much time, or I'll get to them in like another week or two before we do like our revision round, and I'll give you guys feedback live in class. But yeah, it just either your render settings or it could just be the materials not playing well with the render, because it could also be because you guys are rendering from the viewport render. So all right, and here we have Jessica.
I had a question on Cinema 4D's material assets. As we work on the program and we see a lot of material we're using, it's of a really high resolution, really high materials, so that we can see the form and the texture. Does it make a huge difference if the material is like fuzzier or more clear? Does that affect our animation as it's being rendered, as it's being styled?
Yeah, materials definitely affect time, like render time. And yes, they do in short affect that. You have to think that in Cinema 4D, because it's a 3D program that also emulates, like you can emulate real life objects and stuff with it, right? There's lighting. And so there's cast shadows, there's reflectancies you have to worry about, there's transparencies, there's so many other different factors that play into materials in Cinema 4D specifically that will affect your render time, and it will, I'm talking like immensely affect your render time. If all of a sudden you have a scene that has a lot of glass in it, or has a lot of super shiny reflective material, and you're animating that scene, right? If it's a still image, it's going to take some time to render it, but it's not moving, because every time the frame moves, every time anything within that frame moves, whether it's a camera, the object, it has to render all of that out again. And so things can take a long time. That's why they have something called render farms. What are those? They are locations that have many, many, many computers that are very, very powerful, um, basically hooked up together. And what it does is it shares sections of those files to those computers and they each render it out, right? Like if there's 30 computers, you can have 30 images in that sequence rendering at the same time versus like having to wait for one, having to wait for the other. They are expensive to send to. They are not cheap. They are something that like giant studios like Disney and stuff would have their own render farm in there. They would have their own solution to all of that kind of stuff. But and there's like a process, right? We call it a pipeline. Um as far as like where things go and how things work and or workflow, interchangeable words, pipeline and workflow, right? When you're when you render sections of things out, right? Like if you have a really long animation, like a film, for example, and you render out scenes and then you basically stitch them together in like a post production program like After Effects, Cinema 4D, I'm sorry, After Effects or Premiere Pro or something like that. But yeah, um, they affect it all in all. Here is Yvette.
Hello, this is Yvette. I'm gonna be
What's up, Yvette?
doing the participation grade on the recent assignment this week, which was a real surreal one. First positives. I had a blast doing this one.
Cool.
Honestly, it was a little frustrating in the beginning to
Yeah,
try to get
can be.
everything set up, but once I got the hang of it, it was pretty much smooth sailing from here. Um, the best part of this was that I had was the real scenery. It felt kind of like a game, like those simulator games where you can like customize your own house and you could put a bed in like one corner, or put like a
Digging
lamp
it.
here or
Those
something,
games are
and
fun. Love it.
it was a lot of
It's
fun. So it felt like a game, honestly.
very much like that.
The camera stuff was a little frustrating because of how it was set up for me. Like in my eyes, there was a lot of lines, so it kind of gave me like it confused me a little bit. So there would be like a bunch of lines and the movement around when it came to.
Yeah, the lines are just like guides to kind of just tell you and show you where things are and how you can move things, and it's just like a spatial thing. You get used to seeing them and you'll get used to working with a lot of different lines. And then right, if you don't want to see those lines, you can just shut that object off by hitting those two little you hit the two little buttons. Let me see here. Like we got a cube. Hit these two little buttons right here and it's like shying the layer, hiding it, right? So we just double click that. Green is good, red is off. Turn it off, and then you don't see it. There's also like different views that you can look into. Frame geometry, undo that one. Where are the views? Maybe under cameras. Display. Yeah. Uh, nope. Wrong. Wireframe. Okay, garage shading. That's what we want to see, right? That just gives us kind of like that basic clay look. The other thing, wireframing gives you the. No, that's not right either. Where is it? Let's add a camera in here and see. Not look in that camera. Pull ourselves out. Oh, no, I'm still in the camera. Now I'm in the camera. I am in the camera currently. Let's get out of the camera. Now we're gonna. Oh, I think I'm selecting something specific. That's because I was like selected on the camera layer. Select off. Don't do that. Select off the camera layer. You want to see this area, right? This is like the focal. This this little spot right here is like your focal length, right? That's like how far in the distance you want to see things that are clear or have that or have like a, we literally were just talking about it, not perspective, but depth of field. Oh, my brain. Sometimes I lose words. Anyways, that's like your depth of field, right? And this is how wide your camera is, so you can change those kind of things. So you want to see those effects on there, and you want to see those lines on there, so you get used to seeing them. But
Like it confused me a little bit. So there would
I
be
do
like
think there is a way
a
to
bunch of
hide them.
lines and the movement around when it came to like moving around in the program was a little difficult, but I got used to it overall. And
you can do that, hide it.
the after the surreal one, it was kind of chaotic creativity, which was fun as well. I just picked whatever I found was interesting and just put it in there. Just like, you know what? Yeah, let's make a big tub with like a big old spoon and some
Yeah,
kind of
make it
golf ball
weird.
with a straw in it, because that's kind of weird. You don't see that every day, you know. And wooden
I don't think I've
trumpets.
ever seen
I
that.
don't believe there is such thing. I don't know if there is. That's crazy. I've never seen it, so I was just okay, you know. um
Funny.
what was
Yeah, the
most
surreal
difficult
one gets weird.
was the fact of pinning. I kept forgetting to pin things, and so this surreal was, I had to do this over like 3 times. It was very frustrating because I kept forgetting to pin it, or it would I would double click something by accident, or get out of the if I do edits or whatever, it would mess it up or something. I'm not sure, but I had to do it like 3 times, and it was pretty annoying. But eventually, I got it. Um,
Yeah, sometimes
I
it takes
think
doing it wrong a bunch, and you're like, I'm so tired
for
of it.
ideas, this does give me ideas for the future. When I do make a scenery, I'll know how to work the cameras and the lighting. Most of all, I think the lighting was a lot of fun to play with,
Yeah, lighting's
and
a thing.
um, I always was curious how they did the camera thing, or how they move the cameras around to look like it was like we were actually in the room with this person or character, or I don't know, animal or something, or action, I don't know. So it was very nice to kind of be the person behind the scenes, like.
They have people that specifically just do like camera work inside of Cinema 4D and stuff for like Pixar films and stuff. That's all they do for their job is like direct the cameras essentially. Because it's complicated when you're like stringing different shots together in different cameras and different views.
Like
It's
doing the
crazy.
movement yourself. It was very fun. So I actually enjoyed this assignment. Um, I think it was just the setting up that was the most difficult, because it's always the setting up that's the worst for me, because I have to find where to start and then put everything into the programs, which sometimes I mess up on. Um, I feel like it would help if they I know some of the videos already have like tutorials of how to put it in, but sometimes, what I have on my screen isn't similar to what he has on his screen, so it's like very frustrating, but eventually I figured out thanks to Bell, or
Yeah, like the whole thing about being creative on your own, right? Like oh, not Jessica, but Janelle was dealing with earlier with the clock, right? Like you put something in there that you want to work and then you realize it's not working for some reason, and my suggestion is to either Google it, right? See why that thing isn't working specifically. Because you'll see a lot of Reddit forums and different forums that talk about those specific, including Cinema 4D forums, which you can go through and read, and After Effects forums, right? But yeah, that's a common thing that we all deal with, and happens still to this day. I deal with it too. So, right, we have Janelle or Juliana. Sorry.
So my question is, when I was making this, I wanted
That's great.
these to have like those little radio tower lights on it, and I would try to do area light,
Yeah,
but
so
I
the
couldn't
area
figure
light.
out how to. No, it's loading that. I couldn't figure out how to like make where it shined the light smaller. I saw that you could like change the shape that showed, but I couldn't figure out how to make it like smaller or anything to where it was just like a little. Right,
yeah, so you don't want to use an area light with that. I think you want to use, which light is it? You know, and just bring the lights in until you can kind of see. A good one to use as a reference is like the light that they use inside of a lamp, right? You can always drag a lamp into your scene and then just delete the rest of the body. I mean, that's a cheap, or that's like wrong. That's a kind of hack, right? That's a hack that we can use to do that. I think that it's not going to be a physical sky, right? Or the sunlight. We don't want that, or infinite light, right? Those are environmental lights. The area light is going to be, the best way you can describe it is almost like fluorescent lighting, like above your head, right? It's like to cover an area and not to be a specific one. You just want, I think, a regular light. And if I bring that out, that shows, maybe not that one. Let me see here. Let's do what I said. Let's do the hack, right? Let's go into here, go into objects. We're going to type in lamp and drag it in to our scene. Bring it up because it's obviously not going to show that. And then we're going to, let me zoom in on that. I think that it's just like a regular light in there. It'll be under the shade. Just a regular light. And then you just copy that. Move that on up out of here. And then it'll, there you can just add it to those little spots that you're doing. Or just add that little light like I was saying. And then you can use it that way. You can get your little spotlights that way.
where it shined the light smaller. I saw that you could like change the shape that it showed, but I couldn't figure out how to make it like smaller or anything to where it was just like a little red dot. I was able to change, like I figured out how to change the color and stuff. Just the other thing. Yeah, the area shape. That I got a sphere, or circle, but
I think there's somewhere inside of
all of this, basic. Except instead of like that tiny little area that I really wanted.
Let me see what
still did all.
Yeah, that just gives you the shape
of this, except instead of like that tiny little area that I really wanted.
Yeah, just use those little lights that I was talking about. You can use that one or just use it from a lamp, and it should work that way. All right, we have Bear.
I actually had a blast for this week's assignment. I love Sims. I love playing Sims, and it reminded me of remodeling or decorating.
Oh, shoot. I almost cussed. Sorry, Bear. I like to call my fingers my Jimmy Deans sometimes. My Jimmy Dean slipped.
I actually had a blast for this week's assignment. I love Sims. I love playing Sims, and it reminded me of remodeling or decorating my Sims house, which was really fun. I did it so many times that I literally couldn't decide on how I was going to decorate like the model, and then I just settled for the one that I have. But it was so much fun. The only problem that I had was how long it took me to render. It took forever. It took like hours. And you said in the video that if the PNG took too long to do the TIFF file. So I tried to do the PNG for a while. It was like downloading just one image. So I was like, okay, I'm doing this wrong. But then I realized about the auto record and found out I was doing that wrong. So I had to fix that and figure out how I was doing that incorrectly. And then once I started to render it, it was
Also, Bear, you want to make sure that you're in like the viewport renderer, right? And just rendering out like geometry only. If it's like coming down to that and becoming such an issue as far as like taking that long to render, I've had renders take like 16 hours before. So yeah, they take a long time.
It was taking forever, and then
Just
every
depends
time
on
I
what you
tried to cancel
remember,
the render, because I'm
materials and all
thinking
that kind of
like,
stuff.
there's no way it's taking this long. So
Oh,
I
it'll take that
canceled
long.
it thinking that, you know, it would just, I could redo it and it would be faster, but I canceled it and it just like, it froze, and then the software crashed and it didn't save anything. So I had to redo it again.
Oh, I'm so
But
sorry. Yeah.
I think
Save right
besides
away.
the rendering, I did lie. I did have a problem with figuring out how to auto record the videos for the keyframes, but I ended up figuring it out and got it done.
Awesome. I'm happy that you worked through that struggle because it's a struggle we have all lived through, right? Especially like the saving thing. The first time that ever happened to me where I had forgotten to save a file and then had a program crash and lost all my work. You just realize how many hours of your time you've wasted, and then you're just like careful to not do that again. So like I said, save everything first right away. Save it, save it, save it. And then just get in the habit of having your finger on the control button and right around S and just control S. Every few minutes, and then making sure that your settings within Cinema 4D are to save like every 5 minutes, right? Or every 10 minutes or something. That way, if it crashes, there's like a backup file that you can open that will have like 10-minute increments of saving for you. And that way you don't have to worry about, if it crashes, you're like, okay, I've only lost like 10 minutes, right? But way to work through it. It's not an easy thing to do. So I appreciate that hard work there, Bear. And then if you come into that issue again with the rendering, reach out to me or Belle and we'll help you work around that, right? But make sure you're rendering at that point, like there can be many things. It could be down to the material, it could be down to the amount of objects that you have in your scene. It could also be your computer that just doesn't, that's a little bit slower. Um, I recommend if you're working from like a laptop, right, to like the gaming laptops tend to be the best option to work in like Cinema 4D. And I know they're expensive. I know how expensive they get, but those ones seem to work the best as far as like using 3D software and stuff.
Hi, I wanted to
Here we
ask something
have
about
Megan.
Cinema 4D. So while I was working on the real and surreal um, animation project, I was looking through the assets, and like when I was looking through food, I realized I couldn't download certain objects or assets, and like
Some
let's
of
say
them
it's
are not
pineapple, of course
included.
can't download it. You see the cloud is crossed out.
Yeah, some of them aren't included with like the student license. I don't know why. They like give us access to everything else, but then they don't give us access to all the assets, which actually drove me nuts when I was doing the video as well. So I hear you.
Out, but is there like a way around that to where I could like download it from somewhere else? Because can't get it from here. Only
Freeze and
like
yellow.
some of them I can download, but others I can't. So is there like a way to fix that, or just a way around so I
No,
can have
if you
like
want to
get
pay,
those assets? Thanks.
yeah, paying for them.
Hi, I wanted to ask something about
That's the only way to get some of them in there. I'm curious to where you did. Sometimes there's a website called Turbo Squid. Here, let me see. Let me see if I can write it down for you. Turbo Squid. Go.com. Sometimes they have free models on their website. There's also some that you can pay for. Some that are all rigged up for animation, right? Because you also have to rig them. I'll talk to you guys about that later about rigging and like linking things together. But yeah, unfortunately, just it's the limitation of like the student license that we have, but it's more than what we got when I was in school. We didn't have any of that. So, and then final question we have from Nick.
Hello, this is my question for this week. When we did the Real Surreal project, we had to combine both of them into one MP4. Without using After Effects, are there other ways to get the same result? Yeah, that's it. That's all my question is. Hello, this is my question for this.
No, we have to do it inside of After Effects. That's my answer. Just that's the only answer I have to that. I'm sure you could use like some other movie editing software, right? Like, oh, I apologize. I'm tired today. You could do it inside of like Premiere Pro. I'm sure you could figure it out how to do it inside of like iMovie or things like that. But really, After Effects is what we want to be working in. So I just suggest using that. But good questions today, guys. I'll also go over your questions that you're going to submit tomorrow. I'll go over those on Thursday's class. And so, with that being said, right, this class, this current class, we're going to go over. It might be a little bit slower. There's going to be 3 sections. We're going to be doing the principles of motion design in Cinema 4D. So, just zoom in here a little bit. It's essentially, we're just kind of piggybacking off of what we've learned to do in After Effects from last week. And, but we're doing it in 3D, right? And so we're going to do, there's going to be 3 different scenes that we're going to animate this week and possibly next week, right? We're going to do a heavy and light impact. We're going to do a bounce with, here, let me just show these to you guys. So this is the heavy and light impact. This ball is going to be the lighter one. This one's going to be the fast one. Let me show you that. And then we're going to do a heavy bounce, right? There's a tiny little ball there that's a light bounce, and then another bounce like a cartoony squash and stretch bounce. And then we're also going to do a squash and stretch on a dice. I know it might feel a little repetitive, right? But the point of these 2 assignments is so that you can really internalize and understand how to convey mass and weight through keyframe animation, right? Instead of like hand-drawn animation. I really want you guys to be focusing specifically. Wrong. I want you guys to focus on keyframes and curves, right? What your keyframes are like, what your curves are like, because those are the things that are going, those are the 2 aspects of animation that are going to convey weight and mass, right? Or any of the like the bounciness, the squishiness, all that kind of stuff is conveyed through the way your curves are and the way your keyframes are. And so let me get out of here. That being said, there are you can always right click and save this video so you can have like a reference, right, of what of what it should be looking like. There are here template files that are all set up, right? You don't have to do the modeling. I know you guys, some of you guys want to get to it, and we'll get to it when we do like we're gonna do like an Eve, almost like Wally, like an Eve bot, and we are going to model her very quickly. It's very simple modeling, but you guys will learn a little bit about that. But for right now, right, here are your templates to download. They're all Cinema 4D files. They're all up to date pretty much, or 2022, but they should all open for you guys correctly. The first one that we're going to work on today is going to be I think the impact one. Impact spring. Nope. Let me just download these separate and see. A great thing to look at too is this a reference for the Cinema 4D animation view, right? School of Motion is an awesome online place to get references for, and they discuss their specifically school that works in After Effects and in Cinema 4D. And then here are some, like if we don't get to it right away, right? Here are some videos that we have done in other classes, right? Here's the die, the squash and stretch and the dice. This animated tune bounce, so that'll be the deformer with the weight. That's a weight one. How to composite all the scenes in After Effects. Some of these are older, right? It only contains the 2 scenes, but we need a 3rd scene, so there's going to be the 3. I'll go over the deliverables here in a minute. But yeah, so you can go over all of those tutorials and stuff if you want. Let me download the rest of these. And they're time stamped, right? So you don't have to watch these right away. If I play this, it starts like halfway through the class or something. So it's time stamped so that you guys don't have to like scrub through and look for it. The deliverables that you guys have for this project. All right, we have an MP4, one single MP4 that is going to contain all 3 scenes. One MP4. Oh, there we go. It should contain the 3 scenes, which is the dice, the bouncing balls, which will establish a weight, in the impact scene, right? Oh my goodness. Slow down. Impact. There we go. And so I want all of these 3 different scenes put into one tiny MP4. You're going to post it on Slack, and then I want you to comment on everyone. I want you to comment on other ones. Here's a couple videos, I believe. I don't know if Casey walks through those on those. I haven't watched those videos yet. And then I want you to also submit it, right? Obviously, submit that MP4 into me. It doesn't have to be the Cinema 4D file, just the MP4. And so, with that being said, let me go to prepare these files real quick. And today, the first one we're going to go over is the squash and stretch of the dice. Now, like I said, this one's going to be a little bit longer because we're catching up with these questions from you guys, and I'm going to go over questions on Thursday's class as well. And so we might have to take this scene by scene, right? We'll start today with this scene. On Thursday, if I get to 2 scenes, that's great. But if I only can get to 1 scene, then it'll only be 1 scene. But I really, it's important that we go over the questions with you guys, because then you can see where other people are having issues, and you guys can, identify if you've ran into the same issue, and you get answers to those questions, right? So let me go to my downloads. Let me move these into this folder. Close that out. Here's a great way for you guys to see me set up a folder, right? Oh, wait, I think I have it almost all set up. I have the same one, right? I'm doing them all differently. I'm going to go in here. Cinema 4D. Oh, wow, I already have them done. Never mind. All right. Not the bounce. I think this is the squash dice template, so I'm going to open that up, and then I am going to hide my lovely face because I just want you guys to be able to see like the entire screen. So let me close it out, and I am still here. And once Cinema 4D opens, I will swing that over to this side. Perfect. Alrighty. So let me zoom out of here a little bit more. Change that. Okay, so let's get kind of into how we're like kind of like the process, what the process is going to look like, right? Oh, I didn't mean to start a timer. The process for this whole, like all of these projects, or this entire project, but all of these different scenes, right, is we're going to animate them in Cinema 4D at 24 frames a second. And then actually we're gonna do 96 frames total, which equals 4 seconds, and that will be for each that's for each scene, right? And then we're gonna render PNG sequence. And then we are going to composite in AE. And then we will turn in one MP4 with all scenes. That is how this whole entire project over the next few days will look like, or next few classes, right? But mainly I really want you guys to focus on like the making sure the frame rate's right, having it the length, and then turning it in one video and not in multiple videos. So if you guys are still having questions on that, please let me know. But the first thing that you want to do is when you open this template, you're going to want to go up into the corner, say file save as, right? Save project as. I already did this, but you'll put your name in front of it, right? And then you're going to save it as the squash dice template. You can just take this template out of there, right? I'll leave it in for whatever reason, but just make sure you save it with your name on it. So then you're not working from the template, right? Because if something goes wrong and you need to refer back to the original, you at least have the original template there that's not been touched. If you're saving a version, right? You're saving a separate version of that. So with this specific one, we are going to be animating the bounce of this dice along with the scale, right? It's the same principle of the After Effects transform property of squash and stretch. And so we're not like, obviously there's no paths around this, right? And so we are going to be animating the scale properties specifically. You want to make sure that you're animating the correct object because if you notice up in the top that it says die here, but it's in this really weird little thing, right? So this right here, this specifically right there is the actual dice. This object, let me clear this out. This object right here, this is what we call a subdivision surface. Let me write that down for you guys. Subdivision surface. And that is always going to look like, let me do this. Still learning this thing. That is going to look like this thing right here. This is a bigger view of what that is up in the corner. And like, you know, it's got this little arrow so you can hold down and select other options, but this is generally, that is what this little symbol up there is, and it's a subdivision surface. Now, what does that subdivision surface do, right? It smooths out geometry. It takes your objects and it divides it. Right? How? Let's look at that a little bit further. So if I zoom in to my object right here, and I take this object out of the subdivision surface, and here's like, I understand the confusing look of it, right? But if you see like specifically right here, you can see that you've got this little square here, right? These are called polygons. Objects are all made up of polygons. They should all, a properly made geometry inside of Cinema 4D should have 4 sides. It shouldn't really have 3 sides, especially if you're going to move it, right? If it's animating, it should have 4 sides to each section. Now, each of these do, it's very hard to see all of them super clearly, right? Because it's in a wireframe view. But each of these little polygons has 4 sides. Now, when you take the object up here and you stick it into the subdivision surface, it is dividing, let me do this, put that in there. It is dividing each one of those polygons by 4. So let me see if I can draw around one of these and if it will appear the same. Actually, let's do this one right here. Ooh, I'm getting a little bit better at this little annotation. It's like a screen annotation program, and there's different like shortcuts, but sometimes I have issues. And so you've got that one right there. Let's specifically look at that one. And then when I bring this into the subdivision surface, it all of a sudden went from this. Oh, let me undo that one. It went from here to adding 4 more polygons in between. And that smooths the object out because we have more geometry to work with, more geometry to mold and to separate together, right? It's essentially adding geometry, but without adding geometry. It's just smoothing it apart. It's just taking what you have and dividing it up. You want to make sure that that is what you're selecting when you're working. When you're animating the dice, you do not want to have, let me see if I can, yeah. When you're animating your dice, you want to be on this object, on the subdivision object. You do not want to be on this one right there. Not on the main shape. We want to be actually doing that. So if you just want to grab this and unfurl it, so that's the only thing that you can grab, go ahead and do so if it makes your life easier, right? And then I'm just going to kind of move this up. So the first thing we want to do is let's check our project settings. So hit Control D. And we want to make sure that we are 24 frames a second. Let's change this right here. We want to make the project time to be 90. We want it 96 seconds because that's going to be, or 96 frames, which is going to be 4 seconds total. And that should be good there. Now, the other thing I want to do is in the example, in the template, there's a disc. Yet in the example that we look at, there's like a flat floor. So let's go ahead and do this because all of your other videos are going to have a plane or a floor and not like a disc. Nothing's happening on a round disc. So let's go ahead and let's make things for consistency's sake. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to grab this floor object up at the top here. I'm going to delete it. And then I am just going to select a plane. So I'm going to go into the object and go down to plane and select that. And I am going to expand that out, right? So like if you just change over in here, the width and the height of it, it'll just change out that. And you can change the segments if you want to, but I'm okay with the 10. It's just a plane. It's not like I'm doing anything with it. You don't want one, but let's 20 by 20. Let's just do that. So it looks a little bit better there. So we have a nice big plane that once we put a camera in and stuff, that you won't have to worry about. You're not going to have to really worry about like adding a camera or anything in. Let me just double check that this is the same template because I had a different template I think I saw before that had like the text and stuff in it. Let me just open this up, and I think it's this one. Restore it. Let's go to it. Oof. Okay, let me open this one. Yep, nope. It is the same. So yeah, so make sure you remove that floor. I wasn't sure if it was an updated template, but it is not. So remove that floor, add a plane, right? And then we are going to start animation first before we start texturing. So, or before we start adding materials on, we're going to animate this first. So let me go to, I'm going to add a protection tag onto this plane so that I don't touch it, right? So remember, Shift C will bring up the search and just type protection. And then I'm just going to take this and drag it onto the plane right there. Or not. Let me see here. Other tags, render tags, rigging, nope, simulation, tracker. So target, I will find you. Type to search. Oh, dang. Right click. Just start typing protection. Rigging tags? Yeah, it's under rigging tags for some reason, but weird. Okay, and that way I'm not touching I can't move around the floor, right? I'm going to only move around the dice. And this is like, this goes for, I know Yvette, you asked the question specifically about like with all the lines and stuff. If you lock things up, you're not going to move them, right? And so then you won't have an issue. Another thing that I'm seeing here is it looks like the dice, it's going through the floor, right? So let's bring that die up. Yeah, let's bring the die up real quick. That's the easiest one. Select the die. Bring that up right to there. All right. Should be on the floor. Yep, pretty much. Can't see anything else. There we go. All right. And so let's bring up let's make this a little bit, we want to be able to see our timeline here shortly. And so I am going to zoom in a little bit. Move it like this. I'm going to bring this dice up into the air. I just want to get a good view, right? We don't have our camera set yet, but we will put a camera in here at some point. So I just want to get a decent view, kind of like a starting view of this, right? So I want to bring that die up in the air because it's going to start in the air, and then we're going to have it bounce up and down, right? So let me go click on the die subdivision and go to coordinates. And here I'm going to make sure that my playhead is at the beginning of the timeline. And I'm going to keyframe that position. And then let's bring up the dope sheet view here real quick. There we go. I was not, and I thought I was getting ready to look at the timeline, but I was not. All right, here's our dope sheet. Perfect. We moved to the beginning of the timeline, which is right here. I'm not sure why this is so big. Let me zoom in on this. I think it's like Alt. What is it? Control Alt, Shift Alt, Shift. No, Control 2. There we go. Okay, and then I'm going to hit H. Oop, did not want to do that. 2. And then just like mouse wheeling. And I think, 3 or 1. All right, so navigating inside of the timeline, right? 2 will zoom in and out of your timeline if you hold down 2 and then move your mouse around. And then 1 will move around the timeline. It'll move back and forth, right? So good short keys there for you guys to learn, right? So here we're at 0, then go to 96. Let me select that die again. The keyframe, let me just make sure it's actually keyframe. There we go. Okay. And then we're going to move the playhead forward. And I'm going to keyframe the position going down to the flow. Right there, right? It looks like it's pretty sure it looks like it's on the floor. So, and then I'm going to remember we can't just move it, right? It didn't just record it right away. So we are going to record that keyframe again. And this is just the Y position that we're animating. And then we want it to stay on the ground, right? We want it to stay on the ground for a second. Let me think of how. Let's do that. Let's move it to the beginning. Let's keyframe it. Move it forward. Move it to the floor. Keyframe it. Let's instead of... We're going to do this right away. I'm not going to do it later. I think that caused me issues last week with it on Thursday. And so what I want to do is I want to select these keyframes, right? And I'm just going to control and I'm going to drag so that it stays on the floor when it goes down, right? Up, down, and we want it to go back up again. And this time we don't have to have it go up the same exact height. We can just bring it up something close, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And then don't forget to keyframe, record that keyframe, record it. All right, so, and then let me drag it again. Let's see here. How many space did we do? This is how many keyframes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's do 8 keyframes for here. So let's just move that over one. And then we will also do, then from there, I believe it'll be right here. Just want to get even spacing on this, right? You want to be an even bounce. And then I am going to take these again, select those, and I'm going to move my keyframe ahead 8 keyframes because that's the distance that these are apart. Let me see, this goes back down, stay on the ground, up, let's go back down. So we'll move 12 keyframes ahead. I'm going to actually select all 3 of these, right? Because it's going to stay on the ground again. And then I'm going to hit Control and I'm going to drag all of that over right there. So then we should have 2 bounces right now. If I bring this to the beginning. All right, cool. So we have a start here. I'm not going to go all the way to end for time's sake. I'm just going to kind of work with these 2 bounces. And then essentially it would go back up. And I think I'm just going to shorten the playback time to right there. All right, that should be okay. Unless, yeah. All right. And so then we're done. Looks awesome. Let's go home, guys. Close it up. Wrong. We are going to now ease that motion, right? The ease of the motion is what is going to sell, or the ease of the curves is what's going to sell that motion and what's going to really give us those principles of animation, right? Of weight, squash, stretch, bouncing, like different things like that. Same like we've been talking about. So we're going to go into F curve view. And I think I have there's an extra keyframe here, right? Let me see this one. Not sure why it is there. Drag this one over. Oh, I don't want it to be. And that's like, right? Like I noticed right away that that I had an extra keyframe in there. And that is definitely not something you want. Up, down. Right, perfect. Down, up, down. It might have just been when I accidentally grabbed one and dragged an extra one. If we go back to the dope sheet view and see here, let me just kind of zoom out of this again. So we have it was because I accidentally selected this keyframe when I went to copy and paste them again. And so you just want this one goes back up, and then you just need this one and this one to go back down. Or stay on the ground. Let me see. Going back down and staying there. You just needed to copy these 2, not this one, because this was the first up position, right? So, again, I know that can be confusing. You have the up ones. I went and set this keyframe down. I moved ahead 10. I grabbed these. I copy pasted, right? Control drag. I went over here. I went back up. and then you move the keyframe and you select these two and control drag those only. Do not include that first one right there. Just to clarify, that's kind of that's where the mistake was made, and that's why I had an extra keyframe, because you want to make sure that your graph looks like this, right? You want one, ground, up, down, ground, right? That's how this is how your curve should look. But the problem here is that specifically right in this part, right, of the curve, it is easing into this keyframe. It is slowing down and decelerating, and that's not what we want during a bounce, right? We want it to accelerate on the way down, decelerate on the way up. So we're going to select these keyframes right there, and I'm going to hold down shift, and I'm going to break that, and I'm going to drag it up. And then I am going to do the same right here. I'm going to drag and select that keyframe, and I'm going to hold down shift, and I'm going to drag it up. And then do the same with this one down here. Hold down shift, drag it up, right? And then I'm going to take this keyframe up at the top, and I'm going to just kind of drag that out. Don't hold down shift, but just drag that out a little bit more. So it's a little bit more, more of an exaggerated shape, right? It's going to be more of an exaggerated going up and down. But the problem is that the spacing's a little off, the timing's a little off on this. And so what's nice about in Cinema 4D is you can either just grab you can select all these keyframes, right? And then this one, make sure you're just grabbing all of these. And I can just hold down shift and drag them in, right? I actually don't want to change the timing of this one here. But this one's just, these ones are off. So instead of doing it from the graph editor though, I'm just going to go in here to the dope sheet view, and then I'm going to change the timing manually. I'm just going to select these ones, right, and do that. And so it's a little bit slow. I'm going to shorten the entire timing of it by selecting all the keyframes, coming up here and dragging. And you don't have to hold down any, like, you know how in After Effects you have to hold down Alt? You do not have to do that in this instance right here. You just click this this little yellow bar right there, and then you drag, right? And so I'm going to have this one, I want this to stop on the 8th frame, so I'm going to bring that over here. And then I want this to only go 4 frames ahead, 2, 3, 4, let's see, 6. Let me see if that's too long for me. Let me play it back. No, I mean, that's not bad. Let's leave it for the 6 right now, and then if we want to change it later, we will. And then, in fact, I'm going to select these, and I'm just going to lengthen it, actually. I just want to play around with the timing until I see something I like. So 10 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frames. And then let's go another 10 frames, right? So we're on, which frame are on? We're on 16 right now. So let's go to 26 frames right there. Then we're going to select these. Just bring those in. And then I'm going to go 10 frames. 1, 2, 3. Wait, when were we on? 26. So let's go to 36. And select these and just drag it over this way. And then just make sure that this is 6 frames, which it is. So let me play it now. Nice. All right. And then if I were just to take I want you guys, I am not showing you guys doing the entire, I'm not doing this over the entire 96 frames, which is 4 seconds, right? And I'm doing it to conserve on time a little bit, but I want you guys to make sure that your bounce lasts that long, right? So like down, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait, where were we? Let me see, 42, 52. And then you could just honestly copy and paste those and then adjust the graph, right? And so if I go back into the F curve mode and I've got my bounce here, right? I don't like the shape of that curve. I'm just gonna kind of just make it a little bit smoother there so it's not so dramatic. And I actually don't want it to come up as far as it does. I want it to go back down a little bit more. So it's not, so I'm going to take this keyframe. I'm just going to drag that down a little bit and then smooth this out a little bit more so that it doesn't go as high up on the second bounce. It's going to go down, up, down. And I actually want it to go up a little bit more. Let me do that. There we go. This should be nice. Let me zoom the time frame. I'm going to take this here so it doesn't keep playing all these extras. Oh goodness, come on. There we go. And that way, when I play it, all right, cool. Let me adjust the timing a little bit one more. I'm going to stretch everything out like 2 keyframes. So I want this to go to the 12. And then it auto stretches all of them. It should. So then 12 to 19, that stretched that an extra frame, but that's okay as long as this is 7 right here. I want it to be even. 43 to 50, that's 7, that's perfect. Okay. It evenly stretched them out. Let's see here. 31. Is that 31? Yeah, that was 31. And then 43. Okay, 12. So everything's timed correctly. I'm going to save that, right? Control S. Play that. That timing's a lot better for me. It's not too quick, it's not too slow. Looks a lot better. So I'm going to go back into the F curve. I'm going to select that and we'll look at how this looks. It's not bad. Let's see. Adjust that a little bit more. There we go. And so we have our flat on the ground, right? And then our decelerate or going back up, right? Slowing down and then coming back down nice and quick. And so let's go ahead and add the squash and stretch, and we're going to be doing that by animating the scale, right? We want to add the scale into this. So I'm going to take my playhead. I'm going to go back to the original, to the 0 frame on the timeline, and I'm going to select the die again. And this time we are going to be animating the scale right over here, right? We don't want to worry. Don't worry about the rotation. No, don't touch me. Don't touch these guys. Don't touch the X or the Z value. We just want to worry about the scale. Now, the thing is, right, we're working in 3D space. So it's slightly more complex than just animating the X and the Y. We're throwing in a Z space. And so the biggest thing about, and in fact, I don't know if I mentioned this. I think that Belle, thank you, Belle, by the way, for throwing this into the notes on the last video. But when it comes to squashing and stretching objects, you want the volume to remain the same, right? And so however far you squish the object down on the Y value, on this value, right? However far you squish it down, you want to expand it out on all sides evenly. What do I mean by that? If I'm going to, let's just get kind of right into it right now. So let me move the playhead to about 1 to 2 frames after the dice lands on the floor, right? Like we'll put it right here. And I'm going to keyframe all three of these scale values. 1, 2, 3, because we're going to be working with all of them. So I'm going to hit 1, 2, 3, record it, right? And then what I'm going to do is, that's at 1, 1, 1, right? I'm going to move the, I'm sorry, that one we want to be, let me undo that real quick. Oh, and this is a great way to show you how to undo that. So you've keyframed something in a place you don't want. You've keyframed the wrong keyframes that you don't want. You just right click on the object, or on the keyframe specifically. You go to animation, right? Let me zoom in here so you guys can see. Right click on the keyframe, go to animation, and then go to delete track. This one right there. That is the one you want to select, and that will just delete all the keyframes on that track specifically. So let me click that, delete track, and it deleted it for all of them. And so I want to actually start a couple frames before the ball, or before the dice gets to the bounce, right? And that's when I want to keyframe 1, 1, 1. I want all the values to be 1. And then I'm going to take my playhead and I'm going to move it a couple, or 1 to 2 frames after the dice hits the ground. And I'm going to change these values first, right? I'm going to change the, let's change the Y value first, right? If I hit T, if I'm in the actual window, project window. Oops. The value changed to 0, so it fully flattened out on there. So let me change it back to 1 here. But if you hit T and you go right, this is what I was talking about when these move. And I saw you recognize, I believe it was Brian who asked that, but I saw that you had you knew what you were using. You were using your shortcut keys there. You were just clicking up around here. So I'm not worried about that, but I just want to make sure that if you guys want to do it this way, you can, but it's harder to do it that way because you're going to have to like remember what I said. If it's going down in a certain value here, right? You want it to actually you have to change. That is why it's not working for you, Brian. Is because if you notice when I squish this down here with the transform and the scale, it does not change. The value is not changing over here. And so that might be the issue that you're running into. Like if I squeeze it down like that, you do not see a change over here. And that is probably why. So let me just go back. Okay. I just want to make sure that I do this properly for you guys. Let me go over here. The scale should be 111. And then I will move 2 frames ahead and it's there. Okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure it wasn't deformed there and I was working with a deformed die. So over in this Y value, I'm going to type in 0.6 and I'm going to keyframe that. And it's going to squash that die down. Now, in order to maintain the volume, right, the 0.6, you're taking away 0.4 from 1 to get that value. So we're going to add that 0.4 to the 1 to the X and the Z value in order for it to expand the same amount of area that it did squish, right? So the X value is going to be 1.4. Oop, not 1.45. And then the Z value is going to be 1.4. And then notice how the keyframes turn yellow. That's because they weren't keyframed at that moment, so you have to make sure you hit that keyframe. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to, let's click on the scales. Let's see what this looks like. Hold on, shift, hold down. Let's turn it up here and look at the graph. So I just kind of zoomed in on our scale graph right here. And you're not seeing, you're only seeing 2 values here. You're seeing the X value and you're seeing the Y value. But you also changed the Z property, right? Where is it? The Z property is right here. It is underneath your X value. Why is that? It's because the X value and the Z value are the same, right? They're the same exact values. So this X is just covering up the Z. I wonder if I click the Z, you'll see it's right there. But then as soon as I click the X, it covers it up. It didn't go anywhere. It's still there. It's just that one's on top of the other. And it just kind of depends on how you select them too, right? I'm going to save this. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to I'm going to select the first set of keyframes. And I am going to move a few keyframes ahead here. Let me see. Let's bring that, zoom out a little bit here, within here. Okay. Just want to get a little bit smaller there. And I'm going to move, because it's only 2 frames, right? I think I want to move to where, adding the bounce in there. You want to make sure that the keyframes are aligned with the time that the dice is spent on the floor, right? So, not this one. Let's move this one. No, not that. Sorry. I just want to make sure. I'm going to select this keyframe here. And I'm going to hit Control and I'm going to drag this, holding Shift. Don't forget to hold Shift because you don't want it to do anything crazy, right over here. Because, right, then we have the squishes happening all throughout here. And then it starts to come up as soon as the ball starts, or as soon as I'm sorry, I keep saying ball, but I'm meaning the dice, right? As soon as the dice starts to come back up, is when you want that kind of squashing to stop, right? And so the values of your keyframes, you're going to want, let me take this and move this kind of in, holding down shift, right? Hold down shift and drag. Let's watch this back. Let's play this back. H. So we have them all here. Nice. Not bad. Kind of happens fast. I actually think that the squash and stretch could be a little bit more like exaggerated, right? So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to just adjust these values, right? So I'm going to take the 0.6 and I'm just going to bump it by 0.1, right? So I'm going to hit 0.5. I'm going to, in the Y value, I'm going to type in 1.5 in the X, and in the Z value, 1.5. And then I'm going to click keyframe on all of those, right? So that it records it. And remember that it's just, it is just recording. I had my playhead over these keyframes. So it didn't add any more keyframes in there. It just adjusted these middle ones. So it was a little bit more exaggerated of a value, just slightly more. And then if I select all these again, I hit H, it'll bring me back to this view. All right, not bad. I can take all of these and you can copy and paste them over to the second section of the floor right there that happens. But let me see here. Let's focus on this first. Let's focus on this first one, and then what we will do is we will add in the rest of them, right? Because I was thinking right now you could copy and paste your scale property values over here. But let's get this down first and get it done correctly before we move over to that section, right? I think that'll work better for me with teaching you guys as well. And so that won't bring any confusion out for me. But so right here, right, your values, this keyframe, let me see here. This keyframe, and this keyframe right there are all of your scale properties, and they should look like this, right? It should be, the first one should be 1, 1, 1, your XYZ, right? The second one should be, if it goes XYZ, right, it should be 1.5, comma, 0.5, comma, 1.5, right? And then that last keyframe, the one right over here, right there, should be again 1, 1. It's repeating itself, right? So that's just kind of how the value of each keyframe looks. Here's the first keyframe, here's the second set of keyframes, and here's the third one. And so that's great. It looks really good. We got the squash going, right? But now we need the stretch. We need like an exaggerated stretch back up here. And so right after the dice leaves the ground, like probably 2 to 3 keyframes ahead. 1, 2, 3. We're going to go ahead and start keyframing the stretch. In fact, I'm going to put it back there, and I'm going to take this part and I'm going to hold down shift, and I'm just going to bring that back in. So it's about evenly spaced on both sides, and that way I'm not accidentally changing the values of those keyframes right there. And we can kind of, what you're going to see is that it's going to stay stretched for a little bit longer, and that's okay because we're going to, or smushed, right? It's going to stay smushed on the ground a little bit longer. And then we're going to go right into the stretch. So 2 to 3 keyframes after, and I'm going to select the die again. And over here, I am going to type in, we're going to type in the opposite, right? So now we're going to stretch we're stretching, right? So we're going to bring the Y value is going to stretch further up, and then the X and the Z are going to go in, right? Because we're adding, we're stretching it out a little bit different. So the keyframes that you're going to want to put in there, let me do this, is going to be the following. You're going to have we'll do the opposite of what we just did. So we'll have 0.5. We will have 1.5 and then 0.5 again. And I believe you can just tab into the next section. So, and then we're going to keyframe all of those. So we get a nice skinny stretch happening, going right up into it. And then what we want to do is we want to move the playhead forward. And we are going to control and drag the original keyframe values. And so we want to move the playhead to like the fastest part of the first drop. Let me see here. We're going to kind of want it to start to go like right about there. And if I am just looking at the scale, I hit H on here, right? This is kind of like this is what our graph looks like so far. You're going to want to select all of these, and then we're going to want to drag. Select all of them. There we go. Making sure not to grab the position keyframes right there. And we're going to hit Control. Ooh, wrong. We're actually just going to control drag that one. I don't know why I was trying to select all of them. And holding down Shift and bringing that right there, right? So that it goes back to the original value. So we want to make sure that's a 111 value right there, right on that section. So if I click there, it should say, yep, 111. So original, we're going to go through the keyframes right now. I'm just going to select these, hit H, bring up. Original shape, it squashes there. Next keyframe right here. It's starting to go back into the stretch, right? Here is the stretch, right here. The full stretch that's happening. Come on now. Dang, sometimes that drives me nuts. So you've got the squash that happens, then you've got the stretch that happens right here, and then it's going to go slingshot back into the regular shape, right? And so then what we want to do is we want to move the playhead forward. Let's get back to this, all of them. I'm going to hit H. We're going to move the playhead forward to the fastest part of the first drop. Right, probably like right there. Or that was just that section. I'm sorry, I'm reading my notes and I just got a little confused. Let me think about this for a second, you guys. Just one second. I want it to look like, let me look at this separately. I want these ones. I believe holding down Shift, select that one as well, because that's 111. And then I am going to zoom out here. Where's the zoom out? Let me see here. No, it's not that one. Sometimes with this one. There we go. That's what I wanted. We are going to take, I think these ones. I'm trying to figure out which ones I want to copy and paste here. So this is the landing back down. And then I want to grab the squash again. And I think back down here. Let's grab these and we're going to control drag those. Let's see what that looks like to this section right there. That looks about right. And let me let's look at the entire thing. There's something off about it, right? So let me just kind of squash, comes back up. We don't want it to start happening until about right here. So we're just going to take these, hold down shift and drag them to happen again, right? Because we are going to bring that back. Holding down shift. Okay, squash, come back up. We want it to be at 111 right around here. So let me go back here and take only these last keyframes there. Holding down shift and squashing it there. And then I want to also copy this one, right? Because we want it to stay at same shape until about here where it's going to come back down again. And so I'm just going to control drag that one, holding down shift. If you don't hold down shift, that it's going to be weird like that. And let's play it. Okay, we want it to actually, we want it to stretch again back down. So I'm just going to delete these keyframes that I just copied. Shift, just select the scale only, and then delete these keyframes. Undo that. Let's go to the dope sheet view. Just select the scale and delete these 3 keyframes right here. There we go. So we have, if we look at the scale, we have, as the ball is coming down, we have it squashing, staying squashed for a second, starting to come back up and stretching, slinging shot back to the original shape. We're going to have it about there. We're going to copy this. We're going to take this original shape. Look, if you hover over, you can see the values of it. Control and dragging it here. And then we're going to come back to about here, right? Because this is, if we select the scale, this is the first position keyframe. We're going to take this one right here. I'm going to copy and drag that here. And then grab the scale again. I'm going to take these 2 and copy and drag these to about right there, right there. And then it should look similar, but we want this to kind of stretch coming down, right? So if I were to remove this keyframe, let's try that. We want it to stretch on the way back down. So put that keyframe back, but then here we are going to type in the values. We want that stretch to happen, right? Essentially what you want is every instance, you want this to be every instance, the y value of like the x and y value when you're looking at the graph, right? Of the scale is whenever the y is going down, the x and z are going up. Whenever the y is going up, the x and z are going down. Here is the spot where it stays about the same height. And then as it's going down, we're going to add a stretch into there, right? So let's add that stretch right about here. I think it's just the extra. If I just delete this here, take this, drag it out, let it hang. Okay, so squash, stretch, 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 back to the original. Squashing too early, right? So holding down shift. Let's bring these back in. Let's take these ones here and bring these in. Holding down shift. That's what it should be looking like here. And then you'll copy and paste this entire thing. That's right. There we go. This part. Let me add in the position values because I want to see where that is in the swing. Okay, that should be, I believe that should be like back to the original size. We don't want it squishing up at the top. So, zoom in here. Look at the values. And then look at the values of this keyframe, 111. Stretch. Regular size, perfect. Oh, it's raining. I don't know if you guys can hear. I love the rain. I am particular to the rain. Hold on one second, you guys. Let me look at something. I think I'm just going to copy and paste these. I think it's just this, right? I feel like I'm getting stuck right here, which is funny. Holding Control, holding down Shift. And there. This should work, right? This should be it. Yeah, that's fine. And then what you'll do is then you will you're going to select all of these, right? And then you're going to copy and paste it at the additional squash and stretch that's happening. Stretching. Maybe not such a dramatic squish there, right? So maybe we can change this to like just the squishing like 1.2 because it's going to add like a slingshot effect, right? So 0.8 and then 1.2. Ooh, 0.2. And then keyframe those. So it's not such a drastic squish there. And then back to the... Then it gives it like a little bit of like an elastic like push at the end. You can have that, or you can just have it like settle at once it's at the top here. At the top of the, which is right here. That's the top of the swing. Let me see this. It's going up. Sometimes just playing things over. Yeah, that's not bad. And then you can adjust the, right, you can adjust the timing of the curves to happen so that it's looks appropriate with, ooh, hold on. Wow, it sounds awesome. I'm bummed I have my headphones on right now almost. Let's take the scale values only. Ooh my gosh. Scary. Let's do it in the dope sheet view. And we're gonna select the scale. We're just gonna kind of tap that in just slightly. Let's see what that looks like. There we go. That looks nice. That's all I had to do is like just bring that in slightly and tap it. And then you can select these and you can control and drag them wherever you need to, right? Wherever your next section is, I think it would be there. But your bounce will continue, so you will actually need those, right? Oops, not all of that, just these. I don't think you can, when you do that, I don't think you can select them all and delete them all at the same time for some reason. Let me just select that, and then that way I know not to. I've got the position selected, right? Because I don't want to. There we go. Let me do that one more time. I don't want to select any of the position ones, so I want to select opposite and delete those. Okay, cool, that works. And then, so let's add some, real quick before we go, let's add, we've got that first springy bounce, right? So now we've got this nice, like, gelatinous looking cube. Took us a second to get there. Thanks for hanging in. I know we're about to reach time. But let's add some, let's add at least like the text in right now, right? And then we can add the textures in on Thursday. And so What I want to do is I want to go up to this section and I'm going to hold down the T and hit the text, like the big thick text. And I'm going to hit rotate because I want it to be this way, 90 degrees. In fact, let me select that text and make sure it is. Yep, perfect. I'm going to hit E and I'm going to move it. And then we're going to bring this down in scale, right? Because we don't need it this massive. And we're going to bring it behind the die. Make sure it's sitting on the floor and not below the floor. Your plane, right? And then we're going to select the text again. And we are going to go into object and drop this height down, right? Probably 75. Let's do 80. And then you want to type in the word impact. Let it show up. Come on, buddy. Change. There we go. Drag this over. Right? In view. You're gonna set up a camera. We'll set up a camera on Thursday. But the next thing that we want to do is let's pick a different font. Remember, only approved fonts from that list. I know Roboto is one of them. That's the one I default to. So I'm going to pick that. Right away, I think that I do not like the spacing of that I and the M. So I am going to let me see if I can adjust the kerning here. Go to the caps, right? Let's do the beveled edge while we're here. So go to caps and under bevel shape, you're just going to increase that just slightly, right? You don't need a lot. Just like, I'll just put in 1. Let's even see if that's too much, right? Let me get in here. Move up, move in, turn around, back over. That looks pretty good. That looks good to me. Tease looks good to me. Okay, and let me see if I can select. I think you have to hit C in order to take the separate eye and move that over just slightly. Let me see what that is what you have to do. There we go. That looks a little bit better. Let me just tap that in just slightly. So there's about equal space between the P, like that space in between the M and the P. I want to get that about that same space between the I and the M. Looks pretty good. I'm going to take the I, M, and P. The I, come on, M and P. And I'm going to move those slightly in to close that distance in between there. Sometimes you got to do this with your text, right? You got to go in and you have to manually adjust. This is called the kerning. Space in between the text is called the kerning. But that looks okay. That looks fine for now. And so then, I mean, you guys can go ahead and add, we can add just real quick. Let's do the textures on, because if we run into any issues with the textures, I want to be able to go through those with you guys. But go ahead and try this section out first. Like I said, this one's going to take a couple classes to get through this, and the we'll finish off with the dice on Thursday, and then we're going to go into the impacts, and then we're going to go into the bounce. And so, but I definitely want to go over those questions. So this week's questions that are due tomorrow night, we're going to go over on Thursday as well. And so that's why this lesson's going to drag on a little bit longer, is because I had an issue downloading last week's questions, wanted to go over them today, still want to stay on track. So next week's questions we're going to go through. We're still on track to get everything done in time. But this just gives you guys a little bit of extra time, right, to catch up on those other projects that you might be behind on. So utilize this this project, right? I'm going to update the deadline for this in Canvas so that you'll get like an extra week on this one. And then in the meantime, while we're working on this, I want you guys to do the catch-ups. Make sure that you're doing your participation grades. You guys are asking really good questions and stuff so far, so I appreciate that. And if you have any questions in between, like while we're doing this, let me know. But once we get done with the after we're done with the 3 scenes is when you guys will composite them and add them all into After Effects. So go ahead and get a start on it, and then I will talk to you guys on Thursday. So sayonara, have a good night, happy Valentine's Day. And yes, Sarah, it is storming for me. I don't know if you're still in the chat. I didn't see that, but yes, it is. And I love it. I am so excited about storms. Makes me wish I were living in Washington, but unfortunately I'm not. I'm here. But have a good night and happy Valentine's Day. I'll see you guys later.